All right, so we're ready to start lesson 17. We'd left off at multiplying decimals, and now we're working on dividing decimals. We're going to go over a few concepts that will hopefully try to make this easier and get this done before we move back to fractions. So let's get started with our warm-up. So our warm-up has both division and multiplication problems here. And again, this is just a quick review, and also I'll kind of stress a little more with this lesson how division and multiplication problems are interrelated with each other and how you can convert one to the other to make things easier for you if need be. But let's go over this. 20 divided by 10, and I'll just kind of show this a different way over here. So 20, the first number goes in what I call the house or whatever. But that's our dividend. And in fact, let me write that on there. This would be, I like how this book series uses these terms quite a bit. The number that's dividing the dividend is called the divisor. And your answer, which in this case 10 goes into 22 times, that is your quotient. So I'll be using these words quite a bit over the next week, just as a reminder, because again, we haven't done division in a minute. So, all right, so that would be 20 divided by 2. That goes in there 10 times. 2 divided by 2, I don't need to show you that one. That's 1. This is where we'll have to kind of review. So we've got 2/10. Again, this 2 is in the tenths place times 10. So over here, and let's multiply that by 2/10. So that gives me that. And remember, we count up how many place values are shown here. So we've got one place value up here. You've got to jump over and put that there. So 2.0 or just 2. And let's look at 100 times, and this is not tenths but hundredths here. And you got 0, 0, and 2. We don't really have to do this next line, but I've got, again, 2 places. I got 1, 2. So I've got to bring my decimal point over 2. And that is also 2. So again, good review of multiplying by decimals and division with whole numbers, and also place value. So all these things are going to be thrown at you over the next couple minutes. All right, so open up your book to page 347, and you'll see some pieces of string up there at the very top. Okay, Mr. Kovich is preparing materials for a craft project. He needs to cut 2 meters of string into 2 pieces that are 2/10 meters long. How many 2/10 meter pieces can he cut from 2 meters of string? So, well, for your notes, I want to just write this question in there. First of all, how many how many 2/10 are in 2? So we're not going to worry about meters or pieces or anything like that. Let's think about the bare bones of how many 2/10 are in 2. And that problem would look like this. It would be 2 divided by 2/10. And that will equal our answer, whatever that may be. So I would like to use this. This first example is a way to show you how you can take any division problem and turn it into a multiplication problem. So let's turn this around. And I'm going to focus on these 2 parts right here. So again, you can take our divisor, which is 2/10, and we multiply that by something, and that will give us the 2 meters. basically we just turned everything around. And I'd like to draw this little rectangle around those last two parts. This is like the first baby steps of algebra for you. So this is kind of giving you a heads up on that. We know from our warm-up that 2/10 times 10 will give us 2, which means we have found the answer. So he can cut that string into 10 equal pieces. 10 equal pieces. Again, this warm-up, or it's not the warm-up, it's the first example. I just want to show you how you can turn any division problem into a multiplication problem and vice versa, and switch it around. In fact, your IXL for today will focus on practicing, but we'll be using whole numbers for that, so we don't even have to worry about decimals. Okay. First lessons, or first sessions for these lessons are usually very short, so we won't have too many notes for today. Explain how you found how many 2/10 meter pieces are in 2 meters of string. Well, it's simple. We changed the division problem into a multiplication problem. And let's look down below. Again, not a lot of notes for this first session. You can look for patterns in division to see how dividing with whole numbers and dividing with decimals is alike and different. Complete the quotients. Again, really focusing on the vocabulary here for these words. In fact, I love this chart down here. Section B has all 3 of them there. Anyway, back up to A. Complete the quotients in the table below to see the patterns of division. So this first expression is 2 divided by 2. And we can think of it this way. Again, thinking of division problems in logical terms or in words. So it makes a little more sense, kind of helps. Think of how many groups of 2 are in 2. Well, that's 1 group. And this one, 2 divided by 2/10. How many groups of 2/10 are in 2? Well, just going back to our original problem on the previous page, you knew that would be 10. And how many groups of 200ths are in 2? And that would be 100. Again, these are back from the warm-up, these two problems. Actually, all 3 of them are from the warm-up, but the pattern you'll probably notice is, notice this 2, it becomes 2, then it becomes 2/10, then it becomes 200ths. And look what happens to your quotient over here. As that decimal point moves, your quotient gets larger. So as the decimal in your divisor, which are right down here, as they get smaller, your quotient or your answer gets bigger. So that's the pattern that we're looking at here. In fact, we kind of answer that in part C down here. But so let me just copy this stuff back down here. All right. So how does the quotient compare to the dividend when the divisor is greater than 1, when the divisor is less than 1? Let's just wrap this up with one statement. As the divisor gets smaller, your quotient gets bigger. And let's think about that for a second. Quotient gets bigger. Again, this is this lesson actually has 5 different parts, so this is going to take our time learning this. But what's being divided in all these is the number 2. But it might not make sense for you to say you're getting answers that are much bigger than what's being divided. But when you're dividing by decimals, you're dividing by like a fraction of it, a small piece. So you will get that larger answer, but we'll get deeper into that as we go. And let's look at, think about 2 meters or divided by 2/10 of a meter. Why is the quotient greater than the dividend? Okay, we just talked about this. Why is the quotient greater than dividend when dividing by a decimal less than 1? Because 2 meters is split into 10 2/10 pieces. Basically, you don't have to do this in your notes. I'm not sure I have room, but like the 2 meters, let's pretend this, both of these represent 1 meter. So 1, 2, 3, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7. Oh, I did terrible. 1, 2. Okay. What that's basically saying is if you divide 2 meters into 2/10 of a meter, you've got 10 pieces there, and that'll equal 20 total pieces. That's why you can divide a number 2 and then get an answer of 20, because technically you're taking that one of those whole numbers, break up into smaller parts. So it'll make more sense as we get more practice, but this is just laying the groundwork for all that. Okay. Your IXL is D20. I think this is the only lesson we'll do in that section D. The rest will be in J if you want to peek ahead. But you'll relate multiplication and division problems by basically you'll be shown a multiplication problem and you'll have to switch it to a division. You have to move pieces around. And it's great practice to start using this technique later on as we learn more about dividing decimals.